Hello guys, welcome back to another video. As always, I am so excited to have you guys here. If you're new here, hello, welcome. My name's Claire. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and my goal for this channel is to really help you guys feel more educated and empowered when it comes to your health so that you can feel really confident in your health choices and actually start to move the needle on your health and your health goals. I like sharing what I eat in a week to show you guys how I put together simple, high protein, high fiber, nutrient dense, whole food based meals that are delicious and easy to make. So if that sounds like something that would be helpful for you, definitely click the subscribe button. We would love to have you here every week, but let's just jump right into the video. So if you guys watched my last video, you know that I was sick the week before this, so I was just getting back into eating my normal meals, but over the weekend, I made a big batch of my roasted parsnips and carrots. I love having these with ground beef in the morning for a very simple beef hash. I also paired it with some avocados, and then I saw these raspberries at the grocery store, and I absolutely had to buy them. They were definitely a splurge, but well worth it. And like I said, this is a staple meal for me because it comes out to over 30 grams of protein and 10 grams of fiber, and it takes me about 5 minutes to make if I already have the vegetables roasted. And then after that, I've been on a huge matcha kick, so I made some matcha with my Elmhurst cashew milk. You guys know I like this one because it's just cashews, sea salt, and filtered water. And then I did end up doing a mini meal prep on Monday. Usually I like to do this on Sunday, but because I was still feeling a little bit under the weather on Sunday, I pushed it to Monday. So I've been seeing these 3-ingredient bagels all over my For You page, but I wanted to try making a slightly higher fiber version of it. And I had this big bag of sprouted spelt flour. I actually really like spelt flour. I find it's easy to digest, especially if it's sprouted. And I like this brand because they are glyphosate free. I did 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of Greek yogurt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I did end up having to add a little bit of extra flour just to get the texture right. And I ended up getting 4 bagels out of this. I was actually really pleasantly surprised by how good these turned out. This will definitely become a staple in my meal prep, especially because I changed stuff from the original recipe. The original recipe called for 1 cup of self-rising all-purpose flour. And whenever I modify a recipe, it almost always doesn't turn out right the first time. Usually I have to tweak it, but I was actually super pleased with how these turned out. I just baked them in the oven for about 25 minutes. I think the original recipe said for 30, but I pulled them out at 25 because they already looked done and I didn't want to overcook them. And then I also prepped a giant batch of my muesli. I posted the full recipe for this on my Instagram, but this has been such a staple breakfast for me as well. Got about 25 grams of protein and 10 grams of fiber per serving, so it is the perfect on-the-go breakfast for me. And then for lunch, I had to have one of the bagels because nothing is better than a fresh baked good or fresh bread or anything like that. My appetite was still a little bit lower on Monday. I definitely had a lower appetite while I was sick. I'm actually really impressed because these bagels have about 4 grams of fiber, 10 grams of protein per bagel. I just ended up having it with some whipped cottage cheese that kind of looks like cream cheese now, and some avocado, a fried egg. Of course, I had some more of the raspberries on the side, and that was just a very quick and easy lunch. And it has been super cold and snowy here in Toronto, and it has had me craving one of my favorite cozy winter meals, and that is a tuna melt. I really like to make it with half tuna, half sardines. You guys know I love sardines. They are higher in omega-3s, they're high in calcium, vitamin D. They're also lower on the food chain, so they're lower in mercury. I will also usually use skipjack tuna because, again, it tends to be lower in mercury as well. So I just did a can of each of those. I also did some mustard. I usually do half Greek yogurt, half avocado mayo, but you can really do whatever you like. And then I've been on a huge pickle kick, so I added in some pickles that I had. I just chopped them up really finely. Whenever I make a chicken or a tuna salad, I just like to make sure that everything is chopped very thinly. And then I still had some homemade pickled onions in the fridge, so I added those in as well. And then for some seasonings, I just did some salt, pepper, parsley, and garlic powder, but you can really do the seasonings however you like. This is also a great protein source just to keep on hand. It's so easy to use in wraps or salads or on sandwiches throughout the week. But like I said, I love using it in a tuna melt, and this is how I like to make just a higher fiber option. So you guys know I love the Ezekiel bread. I do keep mine in the freezer, which means it is a little bit tough to cut, but I'll usually just literally chip off 2 pieces, put them in the toaster just enough to get them thawed. And then I had this mozzarella goat cheese in the fridge, so I grated some of that, and then I just put some of the tuna mixture and some of the goat cheese on one slice of the bread, and then I just put it down in a pan where I added a little bit of butter. And I will usually just cover that and let the cheese melt, and then right before I flip it, then I put the other piece of bread on. on. And then I had a bunch of this butternut squash soup from when I was sick, so I decided to warm some of that up as well. And I really can't think of a better cozy winter meal to get me through February. And like I said, with those simple swaps, we were able to increase the fiber. This is about 9 grams of fiber, 35 grams of protein, plus we have some extra omega-3s from the sardines. This is honestly perfect. It's also great if you have kids and you're trying to get them to eat more protein. It's like a high protein grilled cheese situation. So good. And then of course I had some dates and peanut butter for dessert. So on Tuesday, I was actually in the clinic for most of the day, so I ended up taking my breakfast, my matcha, and my lunch with me, and these are great examples of really easy on-the-go breakfast and lunch options. For breakfast, I ended up just taking some of the muesli, I added a big scoop of almond butter, and then for lunch, I basically took a disassembled tuna salad sandwich. I just cut one of the bagels in half, packed some of the tuna salad. I also took some raspberries to have on the side. I do always still try and make an effort to take a break and eat mindfully, even if I am at work. I just find it makes such a big difference for my digestion. And then after I came home from work, I decided to get started on dinner just before going to the gym. I wanted to make up a big batch of sweet potatoes. If I can and I have time, I do try and make my sweet potatoes in advance. That way they have a chance to cool off. They can become a resistant starch, but if not, I don't really worry about it. While those burn in the oven, I also made a tea with licorice, oat straw, dandelion, and burdock. This has been one of my go-to combinations lately, and I just got a little bit of work done while my sweet potatoes were in the oven. And then you guys know I'm not usually a big snacker, but I did end up snacking a lot more this week just because I was still getting used to going back to eating my regular meals and my hunger cues weren't the best after being sick. So I did have a few dates and peanut butter before I went to the gym. And then after I got back from the gym, I did snack on some sauerkraut while I was cooking dinner just to get in some healthy probiotics. And then for dinner, I'm making one of my favorite go-to meals. It's sweet potato sliders. You guys know I love this. It's such a staple meal for me. So I just started by mashing some avocado. I added some ground beef to my pan and I just smashed them down into little smash burgers. And then over the weekend, I had made this meal. So I had some leftover parsnip fries, my purple sweet potatoes, and I just had that with some avocado and pickles. Like I said, this is one of my favorite meals. So for breakfast on Wednesday, I just had some more ground beef hash. This time I did some of the parsnips, carrots, and also some Japanese sweet potatoes that I had left over from the weekend. And then for my lunch, I still had a bunch of clementines in my fridge. So I peeled one of those and then I just decided to make 2 fried eggs and have them on top of the bagels. Like I said, I was so impressed by how these bagels turned out. They will definitely become a staple. I'm also a little bit worried about all the Americans coming at me for how I pronounce bagel. So let me know in the comments if you think that the way that I pronounce bagel is weird. And then I ended up getting home super late from clinic. So I just ended up making another tuna melt with some leftover soup, basically the exact same dinner that I had on Monday.
Every night I try to love, but your heart is made of stone. All my tears, they fall like rain, yet you leave me here alone. I give you all I have inside. You pretend it's all pretend. Your empty
So
eyes,
on
they
Thursday, I ended up having to run a bunch of errands in the morning. So I took my breakfast to go. I just took more of the muesli with some almond butter and a coffee. And then when I got home, I wanted something really quick and easy. So I basically had the exact same lunch that I had the day before. You guys know I'm definitely not afraid of meal repeating. I did have this beautiful mango in my fridge. So I had half of that along with my bagel and eggs. Did end up eating the other half of the mango. It was so good. That was my lunch. Also, I always season my eggs with salt and parsley. It's just the best combo.
when I'm asleep. Lonely, I just sit and weep. Love me now or let me leave. Endless pain, it's all I know. Hurt me more or let me go. In this game, my heart will lose. Change your ways or set me loose.
And then in the late afternoon, I got started on dinner. I made up some roasted Japanese sweet potatoes. You guys know I always season my sweet potatoes the same way. I do avocado oil, salt, and Ceylon cinnamon, and then I just bake them in the oven at about 400 degrees until they're tender. It usually takes about 35 to 45 minutes, but I just keep an eye on them. These ones did get a little bit toasty. I got a little bit distracted. And then I always have a bunch of frozen broccoli in my freezer. You guys can see I had a bunch of half open bags. I don't know how that happened, but I just ended up roasting a bunch of broccoli. I just put it in just plain for about 20 minutes, let most of the water evaporate off, and then I'll season it with avocado oil, salt, and garlic powder. Throw it back in for about another 20 to 25 minutes. While that was cooking, again, I just snacked on a little bit of sauerkraut, and then my boyfriend picked up some salmon from the local fish store by our house. He got a huge piece, so I ended up having to cut it up. Like I said, I try and have fatty fish a few times a week just to make sure I'm getting a good omega-3 intake. Yeah, that was our dinner. You guys know this is one of my favorite dinners.
Lonely, I just sit and weep. Love me now or let me leave. Endless pain, it's all I know. Hurt me more or let me go. In this game, my heart will lose. Change your ways or set me loose.
So on Friday, I was in clinic for most of the day, so I ended up taking my breakfast and my lunch. For breakfast, I had a tiny bit of yogurt left, so I just mixed in the rest of the muesli, added some almond butter, and then for lunch, I just took some of the leftovers from the night before, so some salmon, broccoli, and sweet potatoes. Of course, I also packed some tahini. I just take that with me, and I put it in my little crock pot at work. We don't have a microwave, so it's a really convenient way to warm up my meals, especially in the winter. I love having warm lunches. I also made a coffee and took that as well.
Tonight, been away from home, but you feel right.
And then when I came home from work, I had a little snack before I went to the gym. These are just some almond butter oat balls that have been sitting in my freezer for a very long time. Like I said, I definitely did a little bit more snacking this week. I really try and focus on making my meals as satiating as possible so I don't need to snack. But like I said, my hunger cues weren't the best. And obviously, if I'm hungry in between meals, I'm gonna eat something. Anyway, moving on to dinner, me and my boyfriend wanted something really simple, so we ended up just making burgers. I made a big salad. This is my go-to salad. It's olive oil, parsley, garlic powder, balsamic vinegar, salt, pepper, and I like using spring mix. And then my boyfriend stopped by the butcher shop and got these dry aged burgers. I did 3 big ones for him, and then I broke one up and made 3 little sliders for me. I had some leftover sweet potatoes, so I used that as my bun, but you could also just do like a whole grain bun or bread or whatever you want. I just love the sliders. I think they're so delicious. We had that with the salad. I cut up some avocado. We had some of the pickles and pickled onions that I still had. This was such a delicious meal. And then of course I had a few dates and almond butter for dessert. That does bring us to the end of the video. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it, got some meal ideas or inspiration. If you did enjoy it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys want to see more of on this channel. If you're not yet subscribed, make sure to click the subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!